pain and suffering.
Very pleasant good afternoon and welcome to Brevard College Tornado Athletics Hall of Fame induction of Robert Bob Gray, class of 1969, a member of this Brevard College Athletics Hall of Fame class of 2020. We're going to celebrate Mr. Gray this evening with this special induction show, this virtual induction, and glad you're able to join us for this event. We've got special guests on the line with us this evening. The man himself, Robert Bob Gray, John Christensen, Tommy Hodge, and legendary head coach Norm Whittick. So we've got some Hall of Famers already in the house here joining this festivity, and all to celebrate Robert Gray. And before we get started, do want to just tell you a little more about Robert Gray, and we'll show you hopefully some old photos from back in the day, as well as we go through the accolades from Bob Gray. 1969 graduate of Brevard College, two-time NJCAA individual national champion, only runner to win a national championship in both his freshman and sophomore seasons at Brevard College. Was under the guidance of two BC Hall of Fame coaches. Thad Talley, class of 2008, was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and Norm Whittick, who's with us right now, he was part of that inaugural class of 2004 for the Brevard College Hall of Fame. Gray is already in the NJCAA Hall of Fame, and just a tremendous cross-country and distance runner in terms of his success. He qualified for the 1968 U.S. Olympic trials in the 3,000-meter steeplechase, set a school record for the steeplechase, and there he is in Sports Illustrated Faces in the Crowd, a very tough honor to get from back in the day. Went on to complete his college career at Arkansas State University, continued his high level of cross-country and track and field success, conference championships there at Arkansas State in the steeplechase and the 6-mile run. Later served in the U.S. Marine Corps, where he ran for the U.S. Marine team as well, ranked 8th in the world at one point in the steeplechase. So just incredible accolades for Bob Gray. And I'm going to hand it over to Coach Norm Whittick to say words further about Bob Gray and, make this thing official as far as his induction into the Hall of Fame. Coach Whittick, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Phil, and welcome everybody to this virtual Hall of Fame. I am very pleased this evening to present two very outstanding athletes to the Brevard College Hall of Fame. Certainly Bob Gray, a distance runner, and Andy Latimer, a jumper and sprinter from the Hall of Fame. And tonight I want to explain just a little bit about the importance of Bob Gray and what he did to our program here as far as developing it into one of the best programs in the United States. Back in the good old days, a long time ago, when Brevard was just a 2-year school, back in 1967, Coach Talley, then the track and cross country coach at Brevard College, recruited a young man out of Maryland by the name of Bob Gray. And it was that recruit that really set the stages for the dynasty that really continued on until the very, very end. Brevard College, surprisingly, has had 48 All-Americans in cross country. And out of those 48, they wound up having 15 additional All-American certificates. So Brevard wound up with 63 All-American certificates. And just think about it. That's just in cross country. That's not in track and field. This is just in cross country. Now, in addition to that, we talked about Bob winning the national championship as a freshman and a sophomore. But Brevard College also had in 1970, Reggie McAfee won the national individual championship. And then in 1983, Alphonse Swai won the national championship, giving us 4 individual champions. That is more than any other school in the history of NJCAA. So we're certainly honored to present Bob. I look at Bob as really the founder and father, and he looks at his age. He's a father now, so we can call him that. But he was really the beginning of our program. And I'll explain a little bit later on some of the stories about Bob and why I consider him to be the founder. At this time, I would like to go ahead and officially welcome Bob Gray, the the father of distance running at Brevard College, into the Brevard College Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Coach Whittick, and everyone that's present. I'm very humbled.
Bob, looks like we lost you there for a moment. Oh, okay, good. I just wanted to step in real quick. This is David Joyce, president of the college, and just honored to get to see you and to congratulate you on this award. I wish we could do it in person, but that's where we are at this point in time. And but you know, a whole dynasty was started after you got here and what you did, and Norm has taken that to a whole new heights, and we continue to, the whole runners program has continued to be something for what Brevard College is known for. And just congratulate you. It's a well-deserved award, and you make us proud. So thank you very much.
Well, every young soul ought to find something that's interesting to them, and it's a gift that God's given to them, and try to excel in it, see where it takes them. I know there's a lot of disappointment along the way, never any easy work, trials and tribulations. And not just that, but a lot of good people help you along the way and recognize certain ways or means that you have, in spite of all the flaws and the bumps and the false things that you get distracted by. That in spite of all that, you can excel in something that you end up dedicating your life to, at least as a young man. And this went all the way up until I was in my late 30s and ran for the Marine Corps. And was very successful there. But the foundation was started by a black coach in gym class in Lackey High School in Maryland. And what had occurred was he gave me some ideas, but the head basketball coach said, we're going to run a mile on a 4.5 lap mile track dirt. And I jumped on that track with everybody else in the class with my PF Flyers high tops. Remember those boots? And off we went. And when I finished with a 5:12, he brought me over there and said, son, you don't know this, but you just beat every guy on the track team in the senior high. And you're on the track team in 8th grade. So that's how it all started. If it wasn't for that recognition there's no telling where my life would have gone. It's always some point in time that you look back.
Thank you, Bob, and congratulations again on officially being inducted into the Brevard College Tornado Athletics Hall of Fame. Coach Whittick, I want to bring it back to you. We're hoping to still connect with Coach Talley this evening, but do want to hear kind of the backstory of how you arrived at Brevard College, and also upon that, how Bob Gray was a key part of your success as a brand new coach.
I got to remember to undo this. Yeah, it actually started in high school. It's hard to believe that that's how interlocking all this is. But when I was a senior in high school up in Illinois, I had gotten a letter from the University of Tennessee that they were interested in recruiting me. And they sent an assistant coach, flew into Champaign, Illinois to try to convince me and sell me on the University of Tennessee. And that individual was Coach Talley, which is really hard to believe that that's the beginning of my relationship with him. Well, when Bob Gray finished his freshman year, Coach Talley was here at Brevard College. And Coach Rowe actually wanted Talley to go back to Tennessee to help him put on the NCAAs. And so he called up Coach Rowe and said, hey, do you know of anybody who might be interested in taking over the program at Brevard College? And so Coach Rowe called me in his office and said, hey, aren't you kind of interested in coaching? And I go, yeah, sure, And And he goes, well, you ought to go down there and see Coach Talley. I go, oh, okay. So I came down to Brevard, and they thought I was a basketball player. They go, oh, man, we got a basketball player. I'm going, no, I'm here for the head job of track and cross country. And, of course, I got the job at Brevard. Now, I will have to admit, I knew very little about distance training. I was not a distance person. I was a middle distance, and I hated cross country. The only reason I ran it is because the coach made me do it, and I was terrible at it. And so this is where Bob Gray really kind of comes in, because he has actually been the person that actually helped me fill out my philosophy of all about distance training. And what Bob gave me was really a better understanding of what it took to be a distance runner. Very different than being a middle distance kid. And so he taught me the discipline that it really took, getting up in the mornings and running those morning runs when you didn't want to get up there. The high mileage that he had to be able to put in, just the dedication that he had, the mental toughness that it took to be a good runner. But most important, more than anything that I learned from him, was really the involvement of hill training. Bob loved running the hills, and all of his workouts were out in the hill training. And when I look at my program and I develop all the national championships, I contribute to hill training more than anything else to the success that we had. And so when I put all that together, I really do owe you a lot, Bob, because really, you really gave me the foundation for my success and the future of all the runners that have come by, like the John Christensens that were here, really benefited from some of the things that you taught me. Now, one of the best stories that I can tell about Bob Gray was that, unfortunately for Bob, he was at a junior college. And when I say that is that Bob could have made a lot more All-Americans certificates if the junior college had indoor, which Bob didn't have a chance to do. They didn't have the 10,000 meters. They didn't have the steeplechase. So all of the events that Bob Gray is really known for, he ran in the Olympic trials in the steeplechase. When they had the national championships after Bob Gray's after the sophomore year, Bob competed in the national cross-country championships, which invited all of the people in the United States, not only junior college. In fact, Bob Gray was the only junior college runner in that race. It was a 10,000 meter race in Van Cortlandt Park. And they had all the NCAA runners and all those who had graduated. And Bob got third overall in the entire United States. And it was that kind of background that Bob had. He was a very good, true distance runner that the junior college ever saw. And so after he won the nationals for me, which was end of his sophomore year, I wound up taking him to the national championship. And we were at the meet, and he, of course, was favored to win the race. And we were running only 3 miles back then, which was a sprint for Bob. And about halfway through, I saw Bob just talking to this guy, just running along with this guy in the front of the pack, just kind of talking to him. And I'm going, oh, man, what the hell is he doing? So as soon as they came by me, man, I started yelling at him. I'm going, what the heck are you thinking? Get going. The race is almost over. And Bob said a few more words to him and finally goes, just takes off and wins the race. So, of course, I'm new and I'm kind of wondering, what in the world was he thinking? So I went over there after the race off and I talked to Bob. I said, Bob, what were you doing? He goes, oh, man. He said, that was one of my real good friends I used to run against, Terry Cox from Montgomery, Maryland. He said, I was just asking him how he was doing and hadn't seen him in a long time. And I'm going, then what did you say after I yelled at you? He goes, he said, I told you, my coach wants me to get going now, so I'll see you at the finish line. And Bob just took off and won the race. And so, I mean, to me, it was just amazing how much talent that man had. And so, again, I had a great experience working with Bob. Unfortunately, I only had him for 1 year, and it would have been great to obviously have him in the future. He did sign on with Arkansas State. And that's where Coach Talley went. He went back to Tennessee for a few years and then wound up getting a head job at Arkansas State. And this was Bob Gray's sophomore year, which means he automatically transferred over to Arkansas State was very successful over there as a runner. And then, of course, after that, he joined the Marines. So again, Bob, I really appreciate certainly everything you taught me, and every athlete who has come through here in cross country ought to give you some kind of credit. Thank you.
Oh, you're certainly welcome. I got to add to that Van Cortlandt experience. When I was doing the NCAA with Coach Talley, it was a big mass up front, and everybody blasted off for a half mile to get to the first turn. And then you got that hill in the woods, this trail, it's narrow, and you got to get there in the right place. Otherwise, you're blocked. So I really worked hard those first, say, 4.5 miles. And I come off that hill, and I saw that finish line way down that field on the other side. And they had these fences or these things up that you couldn't, so you knew that was a finish line. Well, the first one, I thought that was the finish line. It was a half mile later, my friends, a half mile later. And when I got to that first cone, I was spent and I was losing places. Guys were blowing by me. I was parked, and I'll never forget it. And I remember I think it was Coach Talley. He said, Robert, by the time where he was standing, he says, you're 26. You're 26. And I knew, I don't know where I'm going to get this, but I got to get past this guy. And I got by him at the line, and I got 25th. So that gave me an All-American. But boy, I learned a big lesson there. Big lesson. You got to find out where your real finish line is.
Thanks for that, Bob Gray. Tommy Hodge, another Brevard College Athletics Hall of Famer. We'd love to hear from you.
Well, I tell you, Bob, I'm just so proud that you're in this Athletic Hall of Fame. Several of us have, when we would go to this annual event, one of the first things we'd say to each other is, where is Bob Gray? So I want you to know you've been missed, and we're certainly happy to have you as part of this group of people. And I congratulate you on being part of this, because you are one of the leaders. I agree with Coach Whittick. You were really the first real distance runner that Brevard College had. I mean, I was just one of those pickup guys that played baseball and basketball and football, and track was just a side thing for me. But it did get me through college. For everyone, that may not know this, Bob and I, when I went to Ole Miss my junior year, I transferred from Brevard, and we graduated from Brevard, and then went to Ole Miss. Bob and I actually never were teammates, but I kept up with Coach Talley, and I kept up with some of the athletes that I ran with when I was at Brevard, and it's just wonderful to be able to see you. I don't know if we ever competed against each other. Maybe if you turn around and I see the back of your head, I might recognize it, but I don't really know if we ever competed against each other or not. Maybe you remember it, but I congratulate you again, and Brevard College. One of the things that I said going up to graduation from Brevard and after graduation is the only regret I had is it was not a 4-year school. I would have loved to have been your teammate.
Fantastic.
Well,
thank you for that,
Tommy. I never realized this until you all just told me this, Coach Whittick. I kind of suspected some things, but I never understood some of the real history about the background of all this. I haven't told you this before. Many of you didn't know. Coach Whittick probably recalls if you will remember now. If I tell him again, there's time we forget things as we get older. But I had asthma. I still do. And every time I got on that starting line, I didn't know what it was really going to happen. And anyway, that was a real uncomfortable feeling to not know how you were going to be able to respond like you want to, but you're not going to be able to have it happen. And I've had some major disappointments due to it. But I've overcome it, and I still have problems with it occasionally. But it's been a real battle for me when I was in my athletic, top league stuff. I really wanted to go to the Olympics really bad. I worked hard. The Marine Corps was after that. But what was really good was the hill training I did in these mountains. I love those mountains. And now that I'm back, I'm looking at these good memories. Okay, so I have to jump over snakes, but it was worth it. There's snakes, you can hear them if you're smart enough and hear looking. But I spent so many times in those hills, and I explained it to Coach Whittick, and I didn't realize that I was helping him learn a skill that I thought he was quite capable of already accomplishing, because he was doing some good track workouts, and I was responding very well with that, and that's what helped make me the second champion in the junior college. So anyway, but thank you I wanted to make that comment.
Thanks, Bob. And a message here from Cynthia Dawn Gray. I'm so proud of you, my husband, Robert Gray. I'm hearing things I've never heard before. So great to see that your family members are able to join the show as well. We also have with us here Gavin Morgan. He's a current student athlete with the Tornadoes. Gavin, I know the history of Brevard College cross country means a lot as far as the distance running legacy here. Can you tell us more? And do you have some words for Mr. Bob Gray?
Yeah, first off, congratulations for all. That is definitely an amazing achievement. Yeah, definitely. I'm really interested in, I didn't get to hear all your stories, but I would be really interested in hearing some more. Sounds like you got a lot of great advice and stuff to offer to the program.
Well, thank you, David. I met you earlier. We didn't talk much, but I appreciate your comment.
Yeah, man.
I got two things to tell you, though. And I told your coach, by the way. Two things you do. Never do. Number one, don't ever put nylon socks on.
All right, that's good
and do a
advice.
marathon, because you'll be running from a four striker to a heel striker and have a blister all the way across your feet. And you're going to be sorrowful all the rest of the way. The second thing is, if you're going into a big meet, you wait 10 days before you get to that meet. You do your last sprint workout, and I'm not talking about full sprint. If you do that, it'll knock your legs out from under you, and you'll just be dead as a hammer. I did that in the NCAAs, and that was a very big disappointment in California at Bakersfield. I think it was Bakersfield. That was the same year they had a cinder track packed down. That was the same year they had 8 or 10 100-meter runners. And when that gun went off, just before my race, that gun went off. It was like a wall of men to the line. I mean, Himes won. I was very impressed by that race. I said, wow, look at this. It was like a wall of men coming down that, all the same just about. But Himes had just a little bit of lean in that, on that, the 68 or whatever year that was. It was really remarkable to me. Yeah, it was 68, getting ready for the Olympics. But thank you, Gavin.
Yeah, man. What would I know a lot of the team, we were talking about this earlier. We was wondering what your main piece of advice would be, like if we were to strive to make it to the Hall of Fame like you did. What would be your main advice for us?
Well, I can't say I followed any strict diet. It was mostly junk and eating in the chow hall. And there's a lot of science in that right now, especially for recovering from injuries or a sprain or some other kind of muscle issue or tendon or ligament. And that would be one thing to look into, because the science is there to be very helpful, but not abusive, but using drugs. That's never been my thing. The only drug I ever used was like an inhaler, and that never did prove well. If I had a problem with it and I used it, I still did poorly. Number two is that you've got to have rest, and you've got to have teammates to help you be successful, and coaches to hear you out or you hear them in their counsel and guidance. And then, frankly, sometimes you take it, and other times you know that you probably need to modify that, but be submitted to what the coach wants. And it doesn't mean you know it all, but you know yourself and you learn yourself and you know what your limits are. And as you go on with your training, the heart of a champion, I'm not saying that's what I had, but probably people may recognize that. But other things in life can really be a setback later on because you still have that will to compete and you see life being really tough on you, but it helps you get through it. And that's what this is all about, really. Not about sport. Sport is going to help you develop character to overcome a lot of athletes squander their talent in every kind of vain jangle thing they ever come up with. Sad thing to see. Fortunately, I had good coaches. Coach Talley was firm and fair. Coach Whittick was outstanding. And I had no idea that he was at the level that he just explained, that needing more information. And that's wise. That's wisdom when you're seeking counsel. But you don't have to be asking for it. Just watch and you can learn. And actually, that's a humble heart. And that's another point about being an athlete. Be haughty and cocky and arrogant. You know, most distance runners aren't like that. You know, they're not like a lot of sprinters. You know, they got that motif they got to live up to. But distance runners are a different kind of breed. And they're kind of like into themselves and they want to compete and they just want to compete. Actually, they're competing against themselves. They really are. And they're building character in themselves. And sometimes the good, the bad, the ugly, that's all in your life. And it comes out in many ways. And failure can really can be an eye opener. Failure can be a real eye opener, especially when you trained hard. One last little comment. When I was coaching at Arkansas State, I was the head coach there in the cross country and the distance runners. And we went down from training in 40, 45 degree, 48 degree weather down to Houston, Texas. Hydration is very important, but not overhydration. And what had happened was we went down to 90 degrees and 100% humidity, which you couldn't see. And when that race started with these men in the NCAA, when they finished, it looked like a battlefield. And they were strewn all over that 6-mile course with heat stroke, heat exhaustion. I never saw anything like it. And I never had dealt with heat stroke, heat exhaustion in my education and as a coach in PE, physical education. But when the Marine Corps, when I got in the Marine Corps, they're very aware of that because you can become a heat casualty. You ain't on the front line. You're down, and it takes 3 people to take care of you. And that doesn't help on a mission of a Marine to kill, steal, and destroy and get the objective overcome. So to see that feel like a battlefield of all these young men wandering off delirious, didn't know who they were. It was a sight to be seen. And not knowing what to do for them. That was horrible. All these dedicated athletes that spent all this time and treasury and effort and time and whatever, be at that place to compete in their heart and to deal with that and not know what to do with it. So, well, anyway, I hope I've given you something there to hold on to.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that, Rob.
Thank you, Gavin, and thank you, Bob. Coach Whittick, do want to bring it back to you. We had John Christensen on here earlier, a legacy of tornado distance runners, followed Bob Gray and Tommy Hodge and those groups from the late 60s. Can you just talk about kind of what the program became over the years?
Yeah, we were very, very fortunate to be at a school like Brevard. When you really look at when I came to Brevard, and of course I came from Tennessee, and every year that I was there, we won the conference cross country, indoor and outdoor track every year that I was there. So when I came to Brevard, I wanted to be and make Brevard a little Tennessee. Unfortunately, it just didn't quite work out that way in the beginning because of budget constraints, scholarships. In fact, Tennessee had more money in their shoe budget than I had in my operating budget. And so it was kind of frustrating for me to think that I was going to be able to do this. And so I worked real hard trying to find the answers to it. And it took me a while to figure out the exact recipe, in other words, of what we could really do to make this program a success. And so little by little, we started pouring a little bit more money into the distance program, started bringing in a little bit better quality athletes. Training was pretty much the same. I knew how to train, so it wasn't really the issue. The issue was really trying to bring in good quality athletes. And as a junior college, I had a lot of major universities who were very interested in our kids, but also a lot of them were very interested in taking some of their kids. Now, I've got stories that you just wouldn't believe, but just one real good story was Sam Obacha. Sam Obacha was an All-American for us. He was from Kenya. He was at Texas El Paso, not even going to school there. And they had a bunch of Kenyans and Ethiopians. And the NCAA was coming down on them because they were doing illegal recruiting. The coach at Texas El Paso, Coach Banks, was kind of a renegade guy to begin with. But he called me up right in the middle of the spring and said, hey, he says, I've got a 402 miler that's just sitting here. I got to get rid of this guy. I'm going, what? He goes, you got to take this guy now. I'm going, this is the middle of a spring. What am I going to do? He goes, well, I'm telling you, if you don't take him now, he's gone. And so I figured it out that we got him a bus ticket. I got him a job working at a local camp. And of course, Sam Obacha wound up actually coming to Brevard and was just an outstanding athlete. Alphonse Swai, I saw him at an indoor meet running unattached for Georgia Tech. And after the meet was over, I went to the coach at Georgia Tech and I said, hey, what's this guy doing, man? He just won the 2 mile. And he goes, yeah, he said, I can't get his TOEFL scores high enough to get him into Georgia Tech. I said, well, have him come to Brevard. He goes, oh, yeah. He said, you'll need to go talk to Mayor Young, who was the mayor at the time, the UN guy. And he said, and see if he'll let you do that. So I actually went to Mayor Young's house and said, hey, look, we'd like to get Alphonse Swai to Brevard. He goes, sounds like a good deal to me. And so we actually got Alphonse Swai here. And of course, he was just, he actually made the Olympic team for Tanzania. So bringing in the quality of athletes like that, I needed a really good runner to lead us. And I had good runners, but not that one exceptional kid that would wound up leading the pack. And so every year we recruited at least one foreign athlete. And so we had like a John Christensen, for instance, is a good example, and Alphonse Swai, Sam Obacha, a bunch of these kids came to the program. They would chase these kids down in practice. I mean, they would all try to stay with the guy, even though they couldn't keep up with them. But it was the format that they would try very hard to stay. And that was the idea of being able to have that front runner. And once we developed that front runner, we wound up getting second in 1980. And I thought we had won it that year, but Mark Canard, who was a 402 miler, transferred out of Ranger College. He didn't like going over there, so he sat out a year at Brevard, lost his shoe at the national meet, and really cost us a chance to win the nationals that year. So the next year we went, and we thought we had a good shot at that time. But then one of the schools recruited 3 transfers from Arizona, and there was no way we were going to beat them. So we finished second again. And then I said, okay, that's it. We're never going to win this thing. And then we wound up, of course, having the National Marathon Championships. And this was a story where we had everybody back. I knew we could win the national championship the next year. And 3 of my runners came to me and said, hey, we'd like to run the marathon championship as a team. And of course, I was totally against that because the marathon would wear you down. People could get hurt. And I said, I don't think so, guys. And they said, no, please, please. I said, okay, we'll do it under one circumstance, and that is that you have to run together. If you don't, I'm pulling you off the course. Okay. And so we went to the national championship. You run 3 guys, all of them count, lowest score wins. And about the 20-mile mark, the guy from Southwest Michigan was leading. Hutchison, one of our runners, by about 50 yards. Behind him, about another 20 yards, was Pivoteau. And dying was Mike Hickey, Jim Hickey, who never ran more than 10 miles in his life. And that was one of the reasons why I was forcing them to run together. Well, they came up to the 20-mile mark. Every coach there was congratulating me. Go, oh, man, you got your first national championship. Oh, man. And the only thing I could think about is I'm pulling them off. So obviously Hutchison came to me and I said, get off. He goes, what? I said, pull off. I said, I'm pulling you guys off. And by that time, Pivoteau came behind him and said, what's going on? He says, Coach telling to pull us off. And I could hear coaches in the background going, this guy's pulling his team off and they're winning. And so then Hickey finally caught up and he goes, what's going on? He goes, Coach won't let us run anymore. And so they begged me, please, please, please. I go, okay. I said, but if you guys don't, I said, I'm pulling you guys off. So sure enough, all 3 of them took off. And the guy from Southwest Michigan was maybe 150, 200 yards ahead. Well, then I met him at the 23-mile mark. And they were all running together, just having a great time and everything else. We knew we had to meet one. And Pivoteau goes, no, Hickey was Hickey, I guess, said, Coach, he said, we have a proposition for you. And I go, I don't know, guys. He said, really? Pivoteau thinks he can catch that guy. I'm going, I don't know if I want to break this group up. And Hutchison, who was been in the service, was one of the older guys. He said, Coach, I've got Hickey. Don't worry about him. I'll finish with them and let Pivoteau go. So I said, okay, Piv, go get him. Pivoteau won the National Marathon Championship. Guy from Southwestern took second. We took third and fourth and won our first championship. And then from that, we just won 4 straight national championships. It was easy as pie. We blew everybody away. One year we were actually 106-3 was our record. And the only teams that beat us that year was Malone up in Ohio, and they won the NAIA National Championship. And Florida State beat us. And the only reason they beat us at Furman Invitation, which was against all major universities, was that their number 1 runner was Ronnie Treadway, one of my number 1 runners that transferred to Florida State. So, and that was the year we also won the North Carolina State Championship, beating Carolina, Duke, Wake, all those teams. And so we had probably really one of the best distance programs in the United States, not just looking at junior college, but I'm talking about major universities. And the better we got, the easier it was recruiting. I mean, we had kids coming in that kids could have gone to any school they wanted to, but they wanted to come to Brevard, make All-American, and then maybe even get a better scholarship to a major university. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Outstanding, Coach Joey. And be sure to stick around for the 7:00 hour when we celebrate Andy Latimer and Ronnie Treadway and that whole era of Brevard College track and field. We'll learn more about that. Tommy Hodge, do want to hear a little more from you. We're hoping to have Coach Thad Talley on the show. Obviously, kind of difficulties here with this virtual format. So it doesn't look like we're going to have him on tonight, but I would love to hear from you as far as Coach Thad Talley, just so what he meant as far as laying this legacy for all this success.
Okay. Coach Talley actually did not recruit me. Coach Martin, he was the athletic director and basketball coach, and he paid a little bit of attention to track and field. And he actually saw me at the Furman Relays in Greenville and asked me to come up and visit, which I did. And he indicated then that he was in the process of hiring Thad Talley. Of course, I didn't know who Thad Talley was. He was at Wren High School in South Carolina at that time. But I can remember, so it's actually a very fun story. Coach Talley and I talked, and we've talked about it several times. It's when we went to Brevard, you had, baseball started. You started classes, and track and field, started that summer program. And of course, we started cross country. Well, I was a baseball player in high school, so I said, heck, I'm going to go out and play baseball at Brevard. And Danny Boss was the baseball coach. And I was actually out flagging balls in center field. And one of the guys that was on the track program, who I didn't know at that time, came to me and he said, "Are you Tommy Hodge?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, Coach Talley says you are supposed to be at the track, not on a baseball field." So I said, "Okay." So I threw my glove somewhere and I took off, and it started running track with Coach Talley. I had never run cross country before, ever. I came from a small high school in Spartanburg County, South Carolina. And, like I said before, I played all the major sports because being small, we needed as many people as we could possibly get to fill the teams. And track was just a side thing. But I was pretty good at it. I ran the 880. I won the state meet. And it back then, though, it was done in classifications, not open competition, like some of them are done today. But I enjoyed so much my years at Brevard College. Like I said before, the only regret I had is it was not a 4-year school. I enjoyed Ole Miss. I'm a big college football fan. Not so much today at Ole Miss, since I live close to Clemson University. So, but Coach Talley means a great deal to me. I never had the opportunity to run under Coach Whittick. And the only time I remember meeting Coach Whittick one time, it was after we had it was the first year of the Dogwood Relays. And we were running, and I was in the mile. And we were actually running against Tennessee's freshmen, a guy named Roland and a couple of other guys you probably remember, Coach. But I won that. Actually, it was my fastest time. I think I ran 4:14. And I never ran faster than that the whole time I was at Ole Miss. But I enjoyed it, but I have a real special place in my heart for Brevard College.
Yeah, you've always been one of the great supporters. See you every time we have the Hall of Fame, and your contribution to the program has really been very appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we're starting to wind down with this program, but I do want to bring it back to the man of the hour, Bob Gray. As you kind of reflect, you're here in Brevard, North Carolina at the moment at Brevard College, able to visit back. How does it feel, Bob? As far as this sort of trip down memory lane and realizing just how special what you were a part of. I think you may be muted there, Mr. Gray, if you can unmute yourself. Well, as we work on the technical difficulties with Bob Gray, Coach Whittick, final words as far as this evening goes and the contributions of Bob Gray and his induction into the Hall of Fame? I think you're muted, Coach Whittick. If you can unmute yourself, please.
Oh, I'm right. Okay. I just like, again, to say thank you to Bob Gray for certainly everything that he's done for me personally. And it's amazing what Bob Gray has achieved when he was here, considering I really didn't know anything. It's really I've got actually pictures of me running cross country at Tennessee. And again, they made me do it. But I was actually running a race, and I've got films where they were taking the chute down, and I was still running. And now you would think they could at least keep the chute until I could finish. But it used to be where I couldn't even get to the workout spots where they were going to do their workouts. And Coach Rowe used to use me as the interval. And he would say, okay, we're going to do mile repeats. And as soon as Norm gets here, we're going to take off again. And so I never actually ran any of the intervals because I kept on going the whole time I was there. So it was an unbelievable experience to actually have someone who could actually run and teach me everything that he was able to teach me. And it really made me a very good coach after that. So thank you again, Bob.
Thank you, Coach Whittick. Appreciate that. And Bob Gray, if you could please unmute yourself, we'll let you have the final word. Man of the hour. Congratulations on this Hall of Fame induction. Like you still need to unmute yourself, Mr. Gray. Well, having some technical difficulties here. Nothing's easy in this, virtual world, but appreciate you all being here for this special evening as we celebrated Robert Bob Gray and his induction into the Brevard College Tornado Athletics Hall of Fame. Appreciate everybody tuning into the show as well. We had some great comments coming through, congratulating Mr. Gray as well.
Congratulations, Bob.
And thank you, Coach Whittick. Thank you, Tommy Hodge.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me now? No, it's still not working. Not working. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Great. And congratulations once again, Bob Gray, officially a member now of the Brevard College Tornado Athletics Hall of Fame. Stick around at 7 p.m. tonight. We will induct the next member of the Hall of Fame, Andy Latimer from track and field. Thanks for joining tonight's program. Go Tornadoes.